Hello, hello. Yeah, so thank you very much for attending our presentation, Offensive Security, Automation, and AI. And yeah, I think the joke that we prepared was a little bit done already. The fact that I know there's a lot of talks and it's a lot of also hype around this subject, but we just want to share our experience with playing around with these tools and these technologies for offensive security. We plan to go a little bit about who we are and then cover the evolution of offensive security, current challenges, and then go to the automation part. So we will follow a classic, let's say, offensive security engagement, going from threat intel, continuous reconnaissance, threat modeling, testing, reporting, and at the end, maybe consult a little bit the crystal ball and see future trends. So who you are, my name is Andrei, Cristea, manager for offensive security, and with me, my two colleagues, senior penetration testers, Carmen and Danut. We both have a little bit of stuff prepared. About the evolution of offensive security, indeed, it's really incredible, the journey that we've seen. So going from kind of like the dark arts, where you had to know or stumble upon some corner of the internet, and then people starting coagulating into companies as more attacks started happening, and also as compliance requirements starting adding up. So this created a service industry which we are part, or we see evolved so much today. Then what now feels like a natural evolution, but bug bounty appeared to fill important gaps. People needed the time to hammer away at applications in order to secure them, and companies were, of course, eager to get their help. And I think now we are heading into this era of AI cohabitation, not yet replacing, but yeah, working together. What we didn't see change that much, it's the issues that companies still have. So with increasing number of assets that we see today, inventory is still one of the big issues, not knowing what you have exposed or having really good inventories. And not only that, but also sources of truth. So even if you know that an asset exists, what type of information does it hold? PII, PCI, etc. And then just keeping up with everything at scale. Maybe you have good inventory on cloud, but what about on-prem and so on? That's why I think scale is a really difficult issue to tackle. One important part that I wanted to also mention is the fact that offensive security is not something that lives in a void. We just do our attacks, go home, hack all the things, and yeah, have all the snacks. It's about companies having really important balance between what they build, what they defend, what they attack, and companies that have really good a really good balance, so not building more than they can attack or defend, those companies tend to have less attacks over time. It's kind of a question of when. And I think this is also very important now in the era of AI, because companies need to build really good context. So what are they building, when, how, are there signals on when they need to attack that, and are they doing a good job defending it? Yeah, apart from the small introduction, we will go into the fun stuff, so automation and AI. And I think now we are in an era of building enabled by AI. And why I think this is really important is also because, as I am older, initially you had to build things in order to break them. So now we are energized, I think, by AI to build a lot of things. We will start from threat modeling, and we will commence introducing some of the tools. We do this as part of the threat intel journey. This is a basic flow that we want to demo introduce about automating news at first. Some of the products you will see displayed on the screen. We are not endorsing them, but definitely they help. This one, the first one, is called NA10, and it's no-code, low-code solution. This one helps us also because it's very visual. So let me see if the pointer works. Don't think so. So we will start just by explaining a little bit what's going on the screen here. Automation flows in N8N start with what's called a trigger. So you want to start doing something, you will use, in this case, a time trigger. So at certain times recurrently, the flow will start. And in the top part, you will see a couple of the red nodes, which are gathering different types of news out of RSS websites. Then we are followed, once this happens, we get all the news, and we have the curly brackets nodes. These are called code nodes, and are able to execute JavaScript, and now N8N supports Python also in beta. There we filter the news that we receive, and with a little bit of JavaScript, we filter yesterday news, we prepare a summary, and then have the AI as the intelligence that then processes the news that we are gathering. This enables us to, with natural language, select things that we care about and do this at scale. I know that we are bombarded currently with a lot of news. This helps us filter those to something actionable. And then we use, as we get the output in Markdown, we transform that in HTML, send it off via this SMTP final node. And as part of this, initially we did this to gather as many news for offensive security as possible, but this proved to be pretty interesting also for other people, so we started a newsletter out of this service. Now we are also living in very interesting times where AI is building AI. AI is helping us automate things. So it will be a little bit difficult to demo this. We have a YouTube link here and also a QR code. If you dare to scan it, it's the same. But yeah, we want to highlight the fact that N8N, in this case, as good as it is, we can also create automatically flows using AI. Claude Desktop is just an example of a client that can integrate with MCPs. MCP is just introduced by Anthropic, which we have the link above, is a way in which LLM can gain the ability to use tools. Previously, LLMs were very good at thinking. They were telling us what to do, so people naturally wanted LLMs to actually do things. So in this case, we have 3 NCP servers. One, the first one, it's basically able to use the N8N server APIs and push flows, read flows out of it automatically. The second one, context, is just what it is just as it sounds. It gives the LLM a library of context on how to interact with APIs, how to create better code and things like that. As part of this YouTube video, there is also in the tutorial a HTTP MCP, and this one is just a bunch of examples of working N8N flows. So by combining these 3 levels of knowledge, Claude Desktop is able to push pretty good flows out of the box and help us automate really, really fast. A couple of things. This is not magic. You still need to do a lot of engineering. For example, thinking how to manage time. So here, just an example, certain things you want to get in real time as possible, certain things you just want to keep at the end of the week when you actually have time to get to them. So maybe you want, if your company or you're targeting a specific technology, as soon as the 0 day appears, you want to know about it. Otherwise, you leave it for the weekend. And a couple more things I think that are interesting is now that we have the ability at scale to gather information. One important part, because we think of threat intel from external sources, but now we can also manage all the information available internally inside the company and turn that into valuable threat feeds. So quarterly planning documents, different parts of Jira, planning projects, code repository activity like merge requests, we can turn that into intelligence that will allow us to do actionable items and basically think about when do we need to test, what do we need to test, and so on. And for the next part, I will just pass it to my colleague, Carmen.
Thank you, Andrei. Hi, everyone. So we will continue our automation journey with reconnaissance because we can protect what we don't know we have, right? And following, we will look into two N8N workflows and try to showcase the real power of automation in this area. So the first one is a weekly schedule that is getting our company's known IP ranges, and it queries internet databases, for example, Shodan API in this case, and check if any of the scans there have any interesting information about our IPs. With that information, we process the results, basically, and we send it to an AI that is configured to act like an analyst to get basically a complete analysis of our results. We then process the report more, and we send it out through the notification channel we've configured in our workflow. So it is really handy because we can now use natural language to really express to the LLM what we actually want to get out of the let's say the analysis, how do we want the reports to, the results to look like, and so on. And it also gives us a scale that was previously hard to cover with just like manual reviewing. And another example is this one that is doing basically domain discovery. We are querying the certificate transparency logs. These are basically public records of every TLS certificate that has been issued. So we are looking into this and integrating with various tools. Something happened? And integrating with various tools and basically check across our list of known domain that the company owns. With cross-check with this list of CT logs, and for every entry that we get, for every match that we get, we do some additional enrichment. For example, we can do some DNS enrichment or HTTP probing to see what's exactly running there. And then we send the results to an LLM. And we basically want to get from this any, let's see, IOCs if detected, or any suspicious patterns, or any anomalies, for example, across multiple domains that newly appeared. And of course, we will update the list of known domains that we are monitoring with the ones that were marked as safe in this one. And another really good part in this is that if you set this as a, let's say, recurrent schedule, we can have basically domain discovery on autopilot. And the good part is that we can extend our reconnaissance automation to also monitor cloud infrastructure or service directories, or also third-party services, for example, to continuously scan our GitLab repos, or just detect misconfigurations of our external attack surface. Okay, and now that we have the what, we can continue with what an attacker would do with it. Basically, we have threat modeling, and this is the process of thinking through what could possibly go wrong with the system, and detect potential threats, and use these potential threats in security assessments, or just to design the systems more securely in the first place. And we basically can automate threat modeling with, and move away from the manual process, just to resolve resource constraints and coverage gaps that were inherent in manual methods, but also to improve, let's say, consistency, because we can get a variety of results from different assessments, and also responsiveness and collaboration within the team. So we've got to automate threat modeling and basically embed it into our continuous processes in the organization. Okay, so this solution could be just a constant feedback loop. We can start by simply automating scoping and context enrichment. This information is then fed into an AI-powered discovery. And then we use an AI-driven motor to just generate the threat model. And then we culminate with a comprehensive and actionable reporting. And we are looking at an N8N workflow that could basically represent the engine that would drive this automation cycle. So we are pulling data from every data source that you could have available in the organization. This might be documentation, internal APIs, Jira issues, ServiceNow incidents, you name it. And we are using an orchestration, an AI orchestration based on guided instruction to generate this updated and dynamic view of our threat landscape. Okay, so now that we know the what, and we know what an attacker could be doing with it, let's see what we can do to protect whatever we have in the organization. But first, let me ask you a question that I think has been in everyone's mind at some point. With this expansion of cloud infrastructure, with a lot of microservices and assets that pop up and disappear in minutes, do you think we are actually keeping up? Do you think our manual methods are really enough to protect and handle the complexity of our modern attack surface? And I'll invite you to look at this chart for a few seconds and notice that the time to exploit has become -1 days. And that means attackers are already exploiting before we even got to develop the patches for the vulnerabilities. So if I get back to the question, the answer is probably no. So let's see what we can do about it. To be real, the number of assets we have to protect is growing up exponentially. But at the same time, the window we actually have to protect it is getting smaller and smaller. But let me clarify one thing. I think our manual methods are absolutely crucial for that deep, creative, out-of-the-box thinking, but they just can't keep the pace with the initial volume of the initial discovery. And we need automation, and we emphasize in this presentation as well about automation, but not to replace us, but to augment us, to enhance our processes, and let us provide the depth and value where it really counts. And that's why we can say that pen testing is no longer just a skill, but an orchestration of tools and automation. So until this point, we've figured it out what are our assets and whatever entry holes we would have and what can go wrong with them. But the real beauty of this entire approach with automation is that this could be also applicable into the assessment execution and reporting activities. And how do we do this basically? Let's say core tools. We have Nmap, Nessus, Burp Suite. We are all very familiar with these tools. But the real beauty of this is that it's not in just running Nmap by itself, but in having, let's say, an output of a tool like AMAS, which finds out subdomains, automatically fed into Nmap. And then those Nmap results to trigger targeted nuclei scans, for example, and then have an AI that is processing all the data and is displaying it in a comprehensive report in minutes. And this automation and integrations could be truly powerful, and they all have a wide range of applicability. For example, just imagine running Burp Suite and getting the raw results into your own custom scripts automatically, or using N8N workflows to normalize and unify all the data and get it into one single view. Or let's say we can integrate the Slack alert, that could be triggered with remediation details. The second a critical vulnerability is found. And automation in testing isn't just some theoretical concept, so I'll invite Danut to walk us through a few concrete examples of how this could be implemented in practice. Thank you.
Thanks, Carmen. So I'll be trying to take on from here and come up with some sort of examples that might be relevant to what has been discussed so far regarding testing. We can start with this simple flow, which is a basic flow in an and that works around the execute build block, as you can see there. That execute build block allows the workflow to execute actual commands on the system that you have underlying, and then interpret whatever results you might have there with your model of choosing. Then it's just a matter of preparing the right stuff and the right content for you to have in whatever format you might need it. So like I was saying, in this example, you'll be running a simple WordPress scan against specific targets, and then let the LLM do your job for you in terms of interpreting the results and even further proposing actions for you to take based on those results. Of course, like I said, just an example, because the same way you can run another tool if you're choosing, like Nuclei, give it a bunch of lists of targets to run against with your templates of your choosing. And if you're familiar with Nuclei, it gives you such vast possibilities in terms of scanning of your own infrastructure, just because you have the possibility to create templates around it. This means you can do testing, you can do retesting, you can plan in advance and do particular test cases that apply to your infrastructure whenever you need it. But of course, you can take this even a little bit further. This is what looks like an AI agent looks like. It has at its disposal a bunch of tools that you can set it up for it, like HTTP requests, for example, where you let the LLM do the request to the website that you want to test, making sure it's up and running, and making things ready, interpreting the results, so we can choose the proper system commands to run on it in order to give you the proper results. Then you can store everything in a local database and use it further and further in order to interpret the results based on previous results that you've been having. So you kind of have a template you're starting from, and then you just add to it whenever new assets are coming online or whenever you choose to get new assets. The output processing part can be whatever you want to. You can use code blocks to define certain formats. You can use Slack. You can use Jira as ticketing system, or whatever you like or you do have in your company in order to further interpret and work with the results of the flow. Like we keep saying in this presentation, is that we're not inventing anything. We're just using whatever we have at our disposal in order to make our job easier. There are already so many multiple open source initiatives that are experimenting with such LLM-powered agents. Most of them here on the listed list are focused on penetration testing, because this is the main focus of our demonstration here. But of course, all those projects are just taking the same idea of agentic testing and putting it together in terms of what the creator needed. Taking this further, of course, we have the model context protocol, which Andrei mentioned earlier, which uses the same basic principle, integrating some sort of automation in ordinary tasks. The MCP comes with the possibility to give the LLM the option to run different tools that you have at your disposal instead of you, just by simple inputs that you're giving, or just by interacting with it directly in your tool of choosing. But enough with the fun part, right? we're done testing, we have all the data together, and I'm going to come up with something that most of the people here, or at least pen testers like me, are facing every time, which is, of course, reporting. You know, right? The reporting, the fun part of it, the way that you're doing your entire job that you like, and then you come up to this point, and you keep asking yourself the question, is it worth doing it further? It's time-consuming, right? It's an effort you have to do at the end of the assessment because the client needs it. You don't do it for yourself, you do it for the better part of the company. So what can we do about this? As manual reporting is slow and always prone to error, we have the possibility to standardize different flows and use it as documented in order to have specific references which are consistent to the way that your company wants the reporting. Because, of course, you have companies that use ticketing instead of the actual report, or you're doing consultancy, and at the end of the assessment, you have to provide an actual report to the client. Of course, instead of spending time on focusing writing the actual report, you can give the client actual benefits by focusing on improving the way that you're doing your job, by trying to validate whatever an automated tool is doing, or just trying to explore the real impact of the findings, you know? Because this is I think the hardest part to do with the client. Make him understand that what you're giving is helping him instead of pushing him and giving him to do more work. These tools can do for you something that you're probably already doing, which is putting everything together and feed it to a certain tool. I don't know about everyone. I know people that are using manual reporting, and they're writing their reports manually, copy-pasting from old stuff, and trying to figure out how to adapt it, right? But then you might have a tool of your choosing. For the next examples, I'll be using PoundDoc, which is an open source. It's free for everyone. It even has a better community-sustained version, which is PoundDoc NG. But whatever tools you're using, the principle is the same. You give a flow, an input, the input is transformed, and then you have the actual finding pushed in your reports. How can you do that? Of course, the flow or the LLM will need a context. So you'll have to set it up before, but once you do that, it will transform wherever you're inputting and create a structured finding. And this is something that you want in the end, right? The final output is ready to review, and the finding is almost ready, prepared to give it to the client. This is just another simple example that worked for me at the beginning. Like I said, I've been using PoundDoc, so it's just a matter of serving the input, making sure that I authenticate with the tool that I'm using, and then let the LLM do the job for me, format its output, and then push it in my report. From here, it's just a matter of fine-tuning, right? Because everyone experimented with different models. Maybe you want them online, maybe you want them on-prem, and you have to train them based on your needs or based on whatever tools your company are actually using. But from there, it's the same thing. You provided the clear context, and then you let it do its job, and then you just come back and refine it. Sorry? Okay, so the main issue that I have with my tool, which is PoundDoc, was making sure that I don't authenticate, so I don't overload the tool with authentication steps every time I have a new finding. Moreover, I'm using the tool for the basic reason of having a vulnerability database before I actually start doing testing, because I want my finding that I've been using in one report to be able to reuse it and adapt it to my new finding. This basic flow doesn't do anything else, just making sure that I can call the PoundDoc API, I can get my vulnerabilities, and I can have a token ready for the workflow in order to push the LLM answer to PoundDoc issue and create my finding. But in the end, we start with the same thing. We start with the minimal input, basic examples like SQL injection in a specific request parameter, or even use the webhooks in the flow and use curl because maybe you like your command line and you don't want to keep going in and out of it every time you're doing your reporting, right? The results will be the same. This is the actual finding created by the workflow. But of course, as you can see, the description is minimal. But this is just a matter of fine-tuning, choosing the right model, and giving it a better or proper context in order to achieve what you want. The basic idea here is that you do this once until you're happy with the results, and then you're set up for future works. Trying to experiment with this was pretty nice for me, but I'm a lazy person. And I don't want to keep going in and out of different tools, copy-pasting stuff from one place to another. So what I did was I tried to identify a suitable tool for me. Fortunately, Gemini offers a command line tool, which can be integrated with your actual Gemini account, and then you have the entire tool at your disposal. Moreover, I kept saying it before, use whatever you have available on the internet, because GitHub is full of free stuff, new stuff, and ready to be tested and interacted with. My issue though here was that PoundDoc doesn't have an MCP, right? But I did what everyone does these days. I went to my friend Gemini CLI and I started vibe coding, because why? I have the API settings of my tool. I have its entire identity, all the endpoints I can use. So I just vibe code my way through and ended up with my own MCP server. This MCP server has all the functionalities that PoundDoc has and does it instead of me. So instead of going from one tool to another, I chose to stay in my console, open up my project directory where I have the logs from all my tools. I have the entirety of the information I need to write the report. And Gemini has access to it. Having access to it means it can use it and send it to my PoundDoc instance and create the actual finding for me. So, job done, right? What this did for me was just putting up things together, things that I found out on the internet, saw it in conferences, saw it other people trying out to do. And this is something that we're trying with this presentation, trying to spark for you new ideas. I mean, look at the journey that I went through. I started doing reporting manually because I didn't have a tool. I found a perfect tool for me, and then I went a little bit further and created an actual workflow. But more than that, I couldn't stop there, right? Because it had still needed interaction from me. So now I'm in a place where the AI does everything for me in terms of writing it. I still have to review it because we can't put our entire need on AI because we still want our jobs, right? But yeah, this is all about possibilities. It's all about following trends. So talking about trends, I will give it up to Andrei and his crystal ball to see the future, right?
Yeah, thank you. So unfortunately, I don't think we have a crystal ball available. But what we do is the next generation of oracles, which is, of course, again, LLMs telling us what the future will look like. So we asked Gemini, in this case, what would be the future for OffSec practitioners, and this is kind of like the future that it offered. Now, again, I don't think we will ever get this amount of fresh air and sunshine. I don't think that's possible. And of course, just looking outside, again, in Romania, it will not be like this. But still, I do think that we will be empowered by this type of technologies that will do a lot of the grunt work, repetitive work, and so on, to allow us to do more creative things, do research finally, or like, or just work better with these tools to get amplify our reach and results. We do see, of course, this trend of LLMs and in general being integrated more and more. So for the end users, we already see this practice for programmers, but we do think this would be a trend going further. So integrations even with browsers, mobile phones, and various other things. People are selling AI and they will use it everywhere. This, of course, would mean for us more things to test. So it's also again, like more projects to do. We do see, of course, companies integrating not only in the IDEs, like with Google, with Anthropic's Cloud Security Reviewer, but also integrations on different parts, not only when you're writing the code, but you're integrating with various other pieces of code and so on. So, of course, this will be done at a bigger scale and will ensure more security. For us as offensive security practitioners, what we will see is more end-to-end flows. So going from open source intelligence, doing recon, what we showed with gathering threat intel, generating test cases, and then we most likely will have to decide, is this test case something that AI can do 100%? Is this something that maybe we will have a collaboration, us with AI working together, or just the humans because it's maybe something sensitive, or we don't yet have the confidence, let's say, in the models. And what we also showed is that now you can correlate very many sources. So context is very important and will increase again our reach. What we think also when we will be performing manual penetration tests, we will be enhanced. So having let's say like an LLM testing harness, because even if you want to do the testing, LLMs can still do reconnaissance and various other things that would be supplemental to your work. And unfortunately or fortunately, the actual payloads, so once you found the vulnerability, let's say you want to do a proof of concept, do exploitation, for us this will be increased. So the time, will be decreased, and the amount of exploits, of course, will be increased overall. And as we see, there's exploits now popping more and more and more, so also for attackers, as well as us that are more on the defensive side, proactive side, we see. And what I think will happen, we will go into an era of continuous pen testing, but I don't mean continuous in the sense that we will do it just blindly all the time. I think that as we are doing a project, it's kind of taking a snapshot. And we don't want to take many snapshots, that's just a waste of film. But we do want, as companies have more signals generated on what to test, we will continuously test as soon as relevant signals will be available and signaling us, hey, you need to test this, or you need to test this in a certain way. And with scaling, we will get repeatable, modular playbooks, let's say, also for the offensive security side, that we can run in a continuous manner. And yeah, I think the takeaway is that we are not being replaced, but we are being enhanced with all of these technologies. And yeah, I think for everybody in this room that we are naturally curious, we are in a very good position to play with these technologies and make the most out of those. Yep. I think endless automation possibilities await us all. And yeah, of course, we want to thank you, but before we go, we have a couple of links. So all the NNA flows that we showed are on Carmen's GitHub. We have the link if you don't trust the first QR code above. And we have Danut's MCP for PwnDoc-NG, the one that we demoed, also available on his GitHub. And we also are running at our Booking Holdings booth, we are running a CTF. This is a challenge coin. We have 3 short web challenges, 15 minutes. And if you complete those, what I was showing is the challenge coin you could win. So yeah, please reach out to us for automation, or if you want to get like a cool challenge coin.
That is so cool. A big round of applause for Andrei, Carmen, and Constantin. And thank you for so generously sharing everything that you've built. That is a very, very kind a great act of kindness. So we're ready for questions. Okay, excited questions. Let's go in the back. And once we're done with this, don't forget to raise your hand again. Keep it raised until we reach you.
Hello.
Could you stand up, please? Cool.
Hello. First of all, very cool presentation and how you've shown us everything related to what the future would look like. But one of my questions is pretty general, and that is, how would you technically combat the inconsistencies that result from interacting with an LLM, especially when you embed them in big flows like that? Because, of course, you need reliability and accuracy.
I can take this one. So I think it's basically just double checking. And whenever we embed AI in our internal company workflows, we also make sure that we have trained models that are trained on our maybe company data, that have access to all the knowledge of our company on that subject to be able to cross-check the information that it generates. And one example would be that in our threat modeling workflow, after we basically generate the potential threats, we cross-check them with source graph, because we are using this tool, which is indexing our code repositories, and we cross-check the generated threats with the code itself to see if the threat is actually valid in the code level.
Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Let's take another question. And oh, by the way, after the Q&A, we're going straight into the last presentation. Do not leave. It's going to be awesome, and it's going to make your day better. So please stick around. Okay, let's go to the question in front here. Oh, no, we have one in the back, and then we'll get to you. Promise.
Yeah. Somebody of you said something interesting, that LLMs and automations are a tool that will augment us and help us. But doesn't this create a little problem with creating new agents, new hires, new people? Because we all were once young and new in the field, and we learned taking actions and making pen tests and writing reports. Won't this automation lower the quality of the new stuff?
Does no one want to take this one? Kidding.
Okay, so hopefully if I understand this good, it's all a matter of the way that you're using and the way that at least what you think about when you're using it and how much power do you give it as a general matter. So in terms of the actual power that you give it, you still have a control over it, or at least you try to have control over it. Yeah, sure.
If we understand correctly, otherwise we can meet each other at the booth or later on. Yeah, perfect. Because we didn't hear it quite clear. Yeah, thank you.
And that does seem like a topic for deeper exploration. Okay, I believe we had a question here in the front. Please keep your hand up. A mic is coming to you. Over there. Oh,
hi guys.
Okay, go.
Nice presentation. I have a couple of questions. You're talking about automated reporting. How does the tool get the severity and the CVSS score of the vulnerability? Does it detect that the host or the IP is in an isolated subnet or something like that? And the second question is, do you get false positives? If so, what's the percentage of that?
So, of course, in terms of giving the actual severity, almost never we reach it the way that you would give it because of the context. You can't give it the entire context of the application. What you want to do, or at least for me what worked, giving it all the details needed to give me the proper description, the remediation, and most importantly, the actual risk of the finding that it found. But of course, the severity that it gives, it can give it either by context or as a general way that model has been trained. knowing more about the actual application will improve that score. But of course, we are not in the point where we have actual percentages because we are still working and testing with it. It's not something that we've officially implemented because I don't think we reached that point. In the end, it's something that helps me individually and maybe my team. But we don't want it to have all the decision making, mostly because I don't want to feed it that much context. Because if I were to take my time and feed it that context, it would be the same time that I would write the actual issue myself, you know? And can you repeat the second question?
It was about the false positives. If
Oh,
you get
okay,
any-
okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks so
you.
much. More questions? One over there and one over here. We'll take both questions. Keep your hands up. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Adrian. One question. Have you trained a custom model, a local model that use, let's say, a more crafted prompt for your use case to some local MCPs, maybe some memory features to speed up the automation and everything and avoid false positives, or going back and forth with the agents?
During the workflows, when we were testing them, mostly it was a matter of cost. So we wanted to reduce this cost as much. So we used models that don't have that much reasoning. In terms of actually using it, we can integrate it with the AI model that we're using inside the corporate. So in that case, it will use whatever model I'm allowed to use as a user. But in terms of having your actual models and training it towards these objectives, I think you would have to feed it so many reports that you have done in order to better understand the way that you want the finding. Because in the end, this is the reason that you want to use it, to train it sufficiently to generate the finding that you would write it, right? So that's just a matter of, I think it's subjective.
Do you need more data sets over time, collect and train it with that way?
Exactly. And based on the answers that you're giving, since it has access to the API, it has access to all the issues, right? And you can put the model to go through the entire issue database that you already have. And those are issues that you already custom based on your needs. And it will better understand it. And I don't think you need high reasoning models to do that.
I was thinking, maybe I was, comparing like the methodology that XBOW is using, using different AI agents to wait between, their responses, like voting and challenging themselves, to avoid false positives.
Yeah, just one quick mention, the fact that we are a very small team, so the engineering required for some of these tasks just doesn't pan out. For us, it's easier to leverage something that already works. Some of the local models, for example, don't have very good tool like MCP interactions and so on. So it is also a question about where do we want to be more efficient and invest the time that we have available. For us, it's finding findings and reporting them. And this is, to be honest, like a really big engineering task. Like ISBO, it's such a big company, such a big funding. So yeah, we don't think we can currently build like Expo in our garages and be competitive. It's better to leverage what's out there, or of course like engage with other people that have the energy and the skills required. Because it's not just about the model, it's also about the harnessing and all the infrastructure around it, which does take a lot of time. So
yeah, thanks so much.
Very insightful. Thank you so much. And
if
now,
I can add one more thing there, is that I would never, as a pen tester, start training such a model, because if I were to do that, I would change my job.
fair. Okay, let's take the question over here.
Yes, hello. Quick one from me. Right. I understand you mentioned continuous threat modeling, and I think based on the flow, you ingest various tickets and issues. I wanted to understand what kind of threat models you may have explored with and how you found the nature of the artifacts you collect, how well they fit into the different kinds of threat models that may be in existence. For example, could be Stride, could be Lindun, could be Pasta, etc.
So if I understood the question correctly, we didn't try to just focus on one specific methodology. We actually tried to develop our own custom methodology and to try to get out of the threat model the exact results that we wanted and would be like beneficial for the teams or for our own use cases in security assessments. Because as an offensive security team, we are using threat modeling to enhance our testing activities, and we're using that potential threats to validate them, as I mentioned, in security assessments. But yeah, it very much depends on basically what information you want to get out of that that workflow. And in our case, we tried to custom it as much as possible to map on our assessment activities, like execution activities. But yeah, just maybe as a guideline or an initial instruction to the LLM, we've used Stride and Pasta like just as hints to instruct the AI about what threat modeling is and how to act on that.
Okay, then quick one then. How heavily will you rely on MITRE-related matrices? Could be attack, could be Atlas, could be KPAC. Since they all come in relevant when you talk about wanting to use these to plan your attack activities.
Yeah, we are very sorry, but we don't understand the question very well, so we don't want to speak like... so I think you mentioned MITRE, is that right? Ah, okay.
Okay. Yes, exactly. So they have matrices that will help you plan your offensive security activities. So how heavy is your threat modeling methodology on into these kind of TTP-oriented matrices?
So when generating threat models, we've taken into consideration multiple aspects of the scope that was threat model. For example, if it's an application, if it's infrastructure, what type of application, what type of infrastructure, and so on. And we've tried to instruct the LLM to also map the threats and, for example, test cases that we generate out of the flow based on MITRE or other standards as well to get the mapping of each threat and then do a manual analysis or additional validation if that was correctly mapped or not. Hope this answered the question.
I think so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. Do we have one last question? Yes, we do.
Hi, nice presentation here. I remember, I think, Andrei, that you said in the first part that you are using N8N. And some of the steps in the workflow might be coded, like JavaScript or Python. I'm trying to understand if you tried till now to leverage the decision-making to one of those steps, taking also into consideration that in nowadays, given the LLMs are there, all these AI agents can hallucinate and so on. You might even want to have one piece of decision which might be coded because mostly all of us will end up coding things in the future and have the decision making in our hands. This is it.
So I think one important thing that we want to highlight is if there is a, let's say, called static tool, and that works well, we should use that. LLM is just to enhance. A lot of the flows, for example, use the LLM only for the reporting part, a little bit more creative parts. We also, at least for N8N, it is more efficient sometimes than using the built-in blocks like ifs and other things with that kind of Lego drag and drop thing. But it's way easier to introduce that logic via JavaScript and execute it directly. It also gives more flexibility, so it's speed and flexibility, these two things you get. And I think it's a combination. What I think LLMs really helped, as we are not coders, we just understand a little bit and read it, but it generated the code nodes for us very well. So just explaining, and another advantage is the fact that N8N, it's a visual tool, so you have kind of like bite sizes of code. So for us, we don't want this huge monolithic code base. We want tiny pieces that we can actually understand. So there's a lot of good synergies with this approach. And yeah, I think, as we said, we are not engineers, but definitely we think we learned a lot of lessons how to use it. And I think, yeah, we invite everybody to play with it, and yeah, we'll collaborate.
Okay, let's squeeze in one more short question.
Hello. So might be sound like a silly question, but I noticed that you have a couple of images generated with Gemini. So I was wondering why using Gemini, or if you have any particular reason for choosing an AI agent or not. Thank you.
For me, it's the CLI part. As far as I know, there's open code, if I'm not mistaken, where you can integrate different models having your token. But I chose Gemini CLI specifically because it has a command line interface. It pops up my MC server, and mostly it only works in the directory that I'm running. So its entire context is within that directory. Because in the end, like I said, I'm using it as an assistant. I'm not counting on it to have all the decision making.
Okay,
One more-
thank you.
One more note
Sorry,
here.
go ahead.
I think it also matters what resources we have available in a company, and in big company we have a lot of LLMs types available, and we are trying to use each one in the area they are best at. For example, we use Glean AI because it's integrated with our all data sources, and that's an LLM that we use. Yeah, we are basically leveraging as much as we can.
Okay, thank you so much to the three of you for answering so graciously all of these questions. Let's give them a big round of applause.